So, welcome to the Spec-Driven development and beyond. Why beyond? Because today we will present you our experiments that end up in what we call nWave, that is the red pill for agentic AI-assisted craftsmanship. As you see from the background behind the curtain, all the theme of the presentation will be inspired by metrics, and you will understand very soon why. Because the metric is everywhere. It is all around us. And the metrics that I'm talking about is AI, because that have memory, the humankind never experienced a technology so disruptive that in less than 2 years it became a commodity that everybody has. Something that today, if you go to purchase a toothbrush for kids, you have AI even in the toothbrush. That is something pretty shocking. But before going inside the matrix, let's power up the terminal and using the power statement, start to discuss with you, which is the purpose of this discussion, is to show you the 7 years of research on AI-assisted software development. Because we started way before the hype on ChatGPT. The outcome that we want to provide all of you is leaving you a framework for thinking about AI in your craft. And what is here for you? Tons of data and research, and something that really works, and we will show you how. The engagement, this presentation will be highly interactive. It will be with Q&A in real time, and with a demo that we will present you all the stuff that we have done, and we will go together in live. Role and responsibility, me and Alexander, we will be the facilitator with Alessandro, and you all are participative audience. Before starting, ground rules as social contract. As I told you, you can interrupt us anytime, challenge what we are talking, and as a counterpart of this power that we provide to you, we will have a tool that is called Elmo. Enough, let's move on, and we will redirect everything that cannot be discussed because it's off topic in the parking lot. So please scan the QR code for Miro, and you will land in the parking lot where you can park the question that we will get to them during the Q&A. But also I promise you that it will be a very highly interactive meeting. So we will use Mentimeter to engage with you. Starting with the first question, please scan the Mentimeter code, and we will arrive to this question. What are you hoping to get out of this meeting? You have 3 words. Please add what you are looking for so that we start to see what people desire. And with Alessandro, we will try your best to satisfy your desires. So insights, failures, we will show you a lot of them. Experience, inspiration, tools, hints, assimilate, yep, new insight. So inspiration seems to be the most rated word. Experience, yes. Understanding, experience, tools, fun. Yep, we will have a lot of fun. Tools. Seems that is pretty stable now. So, inspiration, experience, insight, knowledge, understanding. We will try to provide you all of that, especially the experience and the insights. Why? Because let's start to who you have in front of you. I am Michele Brissoni. Outside of the Alps, they call me Mike for simple reasons. And I am a crafter since I have memory. I started to develop when I was a kid on an old Commodore 64. I've made spaghetti code. I ran it in production. I know what it brought to me. And I had the luck through and thanks to my brother at the beginning of 2000 to join the Ferrari F1 Formula One experience and see what real engineering looks like. And this changed my life forever. With me, I have the pleasure to present one of my best friends and one of the best crafters that I know, that is Alessandro Di Gioia. Ale, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alessandro Di Gioia. As you can imagine by my name, I'm Norwegian. No, I'm kidding. I'm Italian. I lived in Norway for a couple of years before moving to the UK, where I live now. But Norway was an important step in my life. That's where I really honed my craftsmanship skills. I've always been interested in software design and high quality and also artificial intelligence. And with some friends in here that maybe you can recognize, Pedro Santos and Marco Consolaro, we wrote together a book that is called Agile Technical Practices Distilled, which it's the foundation for the dojo that we are delivering and that now we are also introducing to the artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
Even though I have a passion for martial arts and kung fu like Michele, I didn't meet Michele in a dojo for real, but only on a virtual one.
Yes, indeed. Despite having multiple black belts, our two trajectories were parallel and suddenly they converge because our passion for AI and machine learning brought us in a very long experimentation to arrive to today that we can present to you the evolution of all this experiment that is called nWave. You will understand soon why wave, why n. So, as I told you, we didn't meet in a dojo, and at least not in a canonical one. We built a dojo, trying to reply to the question that was bugging me since 25 years ago. Why can software development operate at the level of excellence I saw in Formula One? In this journey, I found a lot of amazing crafters like Ale, Marco, Attila, Gioia, and many other, Pedro, Andrea. I can name plenty of them. And with the experience of all of them, over time, due to the passion and discipline that we have for the martial art, we built a dojo for teaching software craftsmanship. A dojo that has a model that is predictive, that is based on behavioral engineering, and has 150 key behavioral indicators that are completely observable and measurable on human and team and organization side, and have the peculiarity to have a gamification system that move a developer from the white belt to the black belt of craftsmanship. And this is based on an unconventional way of teaching based on neuroscience or not canonical teaching, plus the peculiarity of a dual track. We teach technical stuff, but also the product side, connecting them with socio-technical practices to make an holistic approach. So a crafter is not only a guy that can code, but is a guy that can understand how a product is created, because the two sides of the coin has to be joined. This journey took only 22 years, and it's a journey that moved us to milestones. The first one was in 2010, we were able to release open source the dojo. In 2019, we started to use the first AI tool that they were trying to bring AI to software. Then is present story. So in end 2022, beginning of 2023, ChatGPT and Claude were released. Everybody got crazy with prompt engineering, vibe coding, and then spec-driven. Finally, agentic AI. And then with Ale, we found last year the recipe to connect all the pieces together and creating nWave, which is the core thesis at the center of this idea and the framework that we will release open source for all of you, is that AI is an amplifier. AI by itself doesn't create excellence, neither doesn't create dysfunction. It simply magnifies the patterns that are already in you in your team, in your code base, in your organization, in your product division. And this is an element that I want to test with you now with another Mentimeter. So please, let's move on to the next slide. That is, what do you think AI amplify most in your team or organization? We have 4 options here. Speed, quality, technical depth, confusion. I want to frame it to something that is tangible and simple to realize as visual representation. As you see, speed is taking over. With speed, a lot of you start to realize also that there is technical depth. Quality, okay, we have somebody that start to use it properly. Let's give more time. As you see, the larger majority cluster in speed, because indeed what we are observing is this pattern, what a lot of people call the AI speed. So, what happened to us that changed the game? Because in 2019, we realized that something was bubbling in the market. Well, when we were teaching people in the dojo, we realized that AI technology was trying to approach in a very silent way the software industry and the software development life cycle. And we were trying to understand, are these tools, this AI, capable to work for a crafter, with a crafter? So the next question that I have for you is, who of you back in 2019 was using Tab9, Kite, or Sorcery? If you were using none of them, yes, please click. Remember, the question is back way in 2019, not nowadays that everybody knows them. As you see, the larger majority seems that they didn't know about this tool or they were not used. And we have also some early adopters. Interesting to see that the early adopters were using indeed Tab9 and Sorcery. They were the tools that we have spent a lot of time as well. Amazing, good. Why this is important? It's important because, as you see, this is the porch, the antechamber of what we have experienced today after the release of ChatGPT. Because with ChatGPT, everybody starts to become suddenly a prompt engineer. All of us, we remember the memes on LinkedIn and Instagram about the death of platform engineering, the start of prompt engineering. We did a lot of research and experimentation to understand, okay, if we want to apply this to craftsmanship, what works well? And what we found is that the stages of design thinking were pretty good using AI as a partner. Also, the content creation, especially with all the experimentation I've done with my podcast, was pretty interesting to see how AI was sparking divergent exploration and how it was able to generate raw material. Raw material, keep in mind, that was good, but not good enough, because what we have found was that if we want to apply the craftsmanship in the loop of having AI as a tool inside the workflow, what we found was that the raw material was not predictable code, no consistent output, no absolutely predictable behavioral engineering practice, not reliable workflow. The result is that the prompt engineering and the normal use of ChatGPT is good enough for periphery, but if you want to use as a crafter, it's not able to work in a way that provides you tools for the core. I ask who is not in mute, please to mute yourself, otherwise the recording will have a terrible audio. The problem here is not the goodness of the prompt, it's the nature of the indeterministic result of the models. And without deterministic results, we cannot build stuff in a reliable way, in a predictive way, how the software relies, how craftsmanship works. So here, I want to understand with you. Let's go in Mentimeter and check the next question. Which kind of code did you build as a prompt engineer in these years using ChatGPT and AI in general? Nothing that is running in production, simple stuff, small functions and scripts, big chunk of production, all the production code that is running nowadays. As I was imagining, the larger majority of the crafters here, they have built small stuff. That is a absolutely predictable reply that we were expecting, because as a crafter, we know the story unfolded with prompt engineering from people that they believed that was possible to create full production applications, vibe coding with the prompt. Vibe coding indeed is a term that Andrea Carpati invented with a tweet X message, sorry, in 2025. But the stuff that as crafters we understood is that for the industry became normal to accept that the code proposed from a Copilot or whatever AI tool was simply shipped in production without any regard of what this code was all about. What we observe since starting to experiment with prompt engineering was that the pattern was pretty clear. The more you talk with AI, the more hallucination AI start to have. Why? Because of the phenomenon of context drift, because the wider the context, the bigger the error compounding mechanism in the models. But also there is an orthogonal dimension, that is, the wider the scope of the problem, the highest the hallucination probability that you will get. So the result is, at the end, if you open the vibe code that a lot of people were proud of, and you look at it as a crafter, you see legacy code at the conception. Code that doesn't have tests and is very flaky, full of security leaks and such. We start to observe this since in 2023, when we start to see people in the dojo trying to pass the graduation ceremony, injecting into the code a snippet of ChatGPT generated code. And we built also a tool to sniff this kind of people. Nowadays, we know that we have research, and this research are confirming this data. And now I want to understand from you, when we return again in Mentimeter.
Someone raised the hand.
Yep, Mano.
Yeah, that's correct. I actually was curious, since you mentioned context drift and reasons for hallucination and not seeing craftsmanship as output. I wonder, doesn't that also have to do with what it's being trained, and that like the general code that it has been trained with is usually not like the highest crafted code?
Yes, and I will show you in detail later when we will do the demo with Ale. For sure, the model is not trained on a code that is built from crafters. I will show you all the details, but great point, Mano. Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks to you. So here I see people starting to put replies. The question is simple. How was your sentiment with vibe coding? I'm really checking the feelings, because vibe coding is a very debatable argument that seems sparking a lot of hate or love from both sides. And as I was almost sure from all of us, we got intrigue. Somebody put it in the trash bin. Some others instead understood that vibe coding is really a powerful tool when you have a product division that is working with a lean UX approach, and you can pair paper prototyping with real protos that are usable, not anymore only on the paper. Good, amazing. So let's move on with the story, because the story finally took a twist in 24-25, where the three biggest research that almost everybody knows, and I invite you to read and study, the DORA, the Stanford, and the METR, they were all confirming from different angles that AI is an amplifier, the thesis that we start to have since the beginning of this research. But what for us was the most intriguing part is related to the concept that emerged between this research, that there is a dichotomy, a gap between the perception of people about how much they are productive using AI tools versus the reality. And this reality gap is something that we put under the label of AI readiness. Nowadays, this is a term that is really used, especially in Europe, because from the February of last year, the European AI Act imposed a lot of regulation and compliance when you deploy AI in your company, because this perception versus reality has to be normated in a very strict way. And if you don't do so, you risk a lot of fine from the controllers. But I will talk about this later. But it's for sure a concept that emerged, and we start to be absolutely shocked about the amount of research that finally, in the last 2 years, came out on the market. So now I have a quiz for you again in Mentimeter, and the quiz is simple. How many research papers do you think we have read or collaborated on to being able to deliver nWave? Okay, interesting. Somebody thinks 50, okay? 20, so the average seems to be around 20 something. You are really close. So officially, we have cataloged them, and we have read, studied, collaborate with 30 research. 30 research that helps us to realize the paradigm shift that we have to take. Back in 2023, with Ale, we realized one important question. Can it be that we are trying to solve the wrong problem? That we are trying to let AI learning craftsmanship, to train AI as a crafter? Could it be that the right question that we have to provide is, can I apply the behavioral engineering principle that we are using in the dojo to transform the identity of a developer into a crafter to the AI itself? And this was the groundbreaking moment, because we realized that we cannot train AI to be consistent. It's impossible. LLM are stochastic by nature. So instead, we decided to use Spec-Driven, but not to develop software, to develop the behavioral constraint that AI has to fulfill in order to have a tolerance in the behavior that we expect from the AI that has a variance that is normal. And we will define in a while what is normal. The point was, the same behavioral engineering principle that we have in the framework of the software craftsmanship dojo were then applied to AI to have observable behaviors, so the 150 key behavioral indicators that I was telling you, that they are predictable and that we can improve and fine-tune over time, version after version. This provides us the opportunity to create our personal assistant, tailor-made for everybody of us. My personal assistant is Vera. And I move her since 2023 to the version 4.0. And this is the render of herself by what she thinks she is. Alex did the same. Alex was absolutely more focused on injecting all the knowledge and syllabus of the dojo in the agents, and the personality of his collaborator is Lyra. That is at the version 1.0, using the latest behavioral engineering boundaries that we have in Vera. Keep in mind these two characters, because they will be part of what we will present in a few minutes. Now, what I want to understand with you is how shocking is this part and this concept for you. So let's move to the next question. Did you create an identity for your AI assistant? Yes? No? I call it simply body, as a lot of people, I see that they are swearing to it very often. Oh, I see that, yes. Good. So it seems that a lot of you didn't create an identity. I see a few of you that have created. Good. I would love to discuss about what you have done with you in the future. So please feel free to connect with me in LinkedIn, because I have a gift for you now. Because I now will try to explain which are the side effects or the pro, or you being able to create the personality of your AI assistant. We have called it bonded variance, and this is the concept that we constrain the AI personality to the behaviors that we tolerate from a peer, a real human being, a crafter that is pairing with us. At the end, let's be serious. Nobody of us is a robot. When I work with Alessandro, I cannot be predictable 100%. Alessandro, on the other hand, is expecting from me some kind of behavior and some kind of results. So the hypothesis is, if the variance of the AI behaviors and result outputs is less or equal to the variance of the human being that I am working with, then I was able to create a reliable collaboration with AI. And with Ale, we have tuned the models to arrive to work with AI to a point that now Vera and Lyra, they are really collaborating with us like we are doing between me and Ale in a face-to-face. Now, what I want to understand with you is, again, in Mentimeter, did you frame the identity of your AI assistant with defined rules you engineer over time? So not only having provided a name, but having improved the behavior and the comportment of the AI over time, so that AI is trying to reply in a more appropriate way. Good, I see that a lot of you have started to use the comportment. Good. Love it. I see two of you, they are offending AI very often, hoping that this improves. It doesn't work, and I will show you something now. Good. So it seems that you all are in the right direction to cross-correct the default training of your AI assistant. Now, let us show you what we have done to create the comportment, the behavior of the AI assistant. This principle is the principle that then we have applied to all the workers in the agentic AI framework of nWave to warrant that the error propagation inside the system stays almost zero. We have built 3 layers. The first layer is the personality variance. So the mechanism, like solid principle, you are a node and you have only one responsibility, one scope, and you provide to the next step that we call wave. This is why we call the system nWave, an artifact. This prevents the model to have context drift and to have multi-personalities that they will mix up what is the payload inside the artifact. Then we built a second layer that is the artifact variance. We have applied contract testing between agents so that from agent B, A to agent B, we have a payload that has to fulfill a specific contract. And the specific contract is then, from the level 3, put under adversarial review, quality test, semantic, syntactic, and also in content, so that we apply the same techniques of event storming, doing the dissonance, checking where there are divergences in the narrative. And we have built it with a system that uses a token optimization with the model in cloud code that is Haiku. The agent that is doing the review is like the agent Smith in metrics. Will always try to kill what the worker has provided as output. And until the agent is able to say, no, everything is working as expected, the wave cannot move to the next stage. At this point, we were able to have predictable behaviors, predictable output, predictable review under specific quality gates. We were pretty satisfied. Then came out an intriguing research that was showing that AI has the tendency to cheat. And so we said, what if our system is building all the coverage with a simple assert true? Everything will be 100% test coverage, but we will not notice until we use it and everything explodes. So with Ale, we threw on the arena the final boss. And the final boss is mutation testing. We say to ourselves, we need to check that the final result is something that we trust. We need to check that the workflow of double loop that we are using in nWave is producing a code that we are confident to ship in production without being stressed. Because this is all about embracing this way of working. And so we came out with the idea of mutation testing as the final level of review that will tell us which is the mutation index of our test. This is something that we have built, and this is a gift that we want to do for you, is all the narrative that I have cataloged in the last 25 years about behavioral science, behavioral engineering, behavioral psychology. I put all of them in this Google Doc, are inside 169 researches. Probably there is some research that is not anymore, anyhow possible to find. You need to go at the university. But it's everything I have in my bookshelf. That is the source of how we have built these 3 layers. If you have problems, if you don't find any piece or something, ping me on LinkedIn. And I am more than happy to help you and also to expand it. It's free, you can access it, and so it's a gift. Now, after this gift, let's start to show you the final gift, nWave. nWave, as we will release open source with Ale, as the metrics revealed. So nWave is the system that is a orchestrated agentic AI crafter. Why orchestrated? Because the system is, first of all, led and directed by a human. In this scenario is me and Vera directing the workers on the right and the agents that are doing the review on the left. And I am setting the compass. I am making the choices. I am in charge. This is very important because for the European AI Act, as a human, you have to be in charge of the AI systems. Then, there is the oracle, the orchestrator, Vera or Lyra for Alessandro, when Alessandro will show you the demo live coding. The oracle is the orchestrator, the one that is orchestrating the narrative based on the compass that I'm setting. Also, the oracle is designed to operate on a behavioral archetype to be a contrarian by design. The oracle is not an agreeable person. It's always challenging us, and we are always challenging the system to the point that we use mutation tests to final proof that something has to be improved. Then we have the team, the crew, the people on the right that are 14. Can you mute yourself? Thank you. That are 14 workers taking care of all the steps that we believe has to be the steps that move from the ideation of a product to the delivery of the product in production. For putting something super simple here, we put only 5 of these waves. The first is the discussion with Riley that will discuss with us which is the product scope. The second is the design with Morgan that we will design the minimal architecture upfront so that with the distill phase with Queen, we will arrive at the end of the third wave that we have a user story refined to a point that everything is in the backlog is definition of ready compliant with BDD and ATDD, with multiple scenario, with edge cases, with everything we need so that the software is reliable. Then we go to the fourth wave, that is the development, where we have Crafty, that is creating all the software. When the software is battle tested with review, with all the stuff that we teach in the Jojo about clean code and clean architecture, and everything is green with the parameters of quality that we expect, and the mutation test is as we expect, we move the outcome to the deliver to Dakota. And Dakota is using all the latest DevOps stuff to move the product on your whatever environment you want. On the left side, we have the agents. They are trying to kill whatever these guys they are doing, so that whatever dissonance, divergence, error, mistake is sniffed on real time, and everything is sliced to a so small task that is almost impossible to propagate the error until the end of the workflow. And you will see it in 2 minutes. Now is the choice. The choice of taking the blue pills and stay in your world where the market will lead the selling of AI products to the companies and where you most probably won't be compliant with the European AI Act, or moving to take the red pill, see how deep is the rabbit hole, and understanding with us how AI amplifies us in the good and also in the bad. Now let's move to the last Mentimeter to understand which kind of pill do you want? The blue and stay in the matrix, or the red? So it seems that the larger majority wants to stay in the red zone. And so let's move on. And before showing you nWave, I want to showcase you another gift that we have for you, because working with a large organization in the last 3 years, we saw a lot of unethical behavior. Can you mute yourself? Thank you. And the ethical behavior that we want to see more in the future is something that is also connected very deeply with the European AI Act, where the deployment of AI now needs to fulfill some ethical rules. Ethical rules that they require some compliance, and for this reason we have created a easy DORA-oriented self-assessment of only 4 questions, where you start to understand which is the gap between your AI adoption and your AI readiness. The wider the gap, the higher the odds that you are implementing AI in your organization in a way that can create legal and financial risk. Because nWave requires amplification of yourself, we have to be careful that who is using it has a full awareness about are you ready to use it? And this is why we have created this project. You can scan, go to GitHub, and it's fully open source. Good. Now, let's welcome nWave. Please scan the code, subscribe to the newsletter. We will keep you updated. We will provide you all the news to release nWave open source, and it will be soon. We will create a community where we will welcome every crafter who wants to move into the realms of software 3.0. Because this is the future that we are in front of us. This QR code will lead you to the website nWave.ai, and you will fill the disclaimer for the cookie, and then you will provide all the stuff for the newsletter. Now, I feel thirsty without voice, and so I guess it's demo time. Finally, I was tired of talking. Good, Ale, let's start introducing what is the challenge here. The challenge is, as you know from us, we do a lot of gamification in the exercises that we do. And the kata and exercise that we want to do with you today is a simple combat simulator of a normal D&D scenario, where we have a character fighting in a dungeon another opponent. Nothing rocket science, simple enough to create a full game in hexagonal architecture, but also simple enough to be understandable. Here is the QR code where you can find the code, because between crafter, let's be honest, everybody is intrinsically looking for code. So all the code is there. You will see the pipelines, the commit, and everything. If I don't click, it will be better. And you will have all the replies to every question that you have about the code. Then, if you want, there is also the QR code of the Software Craftsmanship Dojo, but it was also at the beginning, so up to you. If you want, I can show it. I want to cut it short because I would love to provide Ale the desktop and finally start to show you what we have built together. Shall I stop the sharing and you take over, Ale?
Yes. Okay.
So let me help Ale also in the navigation here, simulating that we are indeed still working as pairs. We have a agenda of what we want to do. And we want to start, after that we have provided you the brief intro about what the kata is all about, showing you where you landed. Not in the dungeon, but on the code base. A code base that Ale has provide at the commit where we can do the code with you. But to be fully transparent with you, we have pre-built 3 stages. So the discuss, the design, and the distill were done up front, so that now we have the micro steps of implementation that we have to build with nWave. Do you want to show them the details?
Yeah. So before diving into the details, since it's going to take some time, I'm going to start the implementation of the first step, and then I can go a little bit deeper on where we are, what happened, what is happening, where we are heading, and so on. This presentation, this part of the presentation, it's very loosely defined, and it should be more question-driven. So if there's something that you're curious about, please feel free to ask. If it's completely derailing the conversation, put it in the parking lot, and then we can continue the conversation asynchronously. So before I start, let me ask to start the implementation. Hey, Lyra, please execute the command nW execute for the software crafter agent for the step 01-01.json. No, it wasn't muted. Cool. Hey, Lyra, please execute the command execute for the software crafter agent for the step 01-01.json. Cool. Okay. So I don't know if it's readable. I will increase it a little bit. And as this is running, hopefully not crashing and burning, we can go on with the presentation. So what happens in here? As Mike already explained, nWave is the name that we choose for this framework because every step, if you want, it's a way for us to refine gradually what we are doing. On the other hand, this can look like really as the coming back of waterfall. And as craftsmen, we don't like this idea. And so what we are doing is try to apply the acceptance test-driven development lifecycle to our implementation. What does it mean? Well, this framework is going to be open source, so please use it, give feedback, contribute, and it's very opinionated. So if you're not a software craftsman or a crafter, a code crafter, it's unlikely that you're going to like it or find it very valuable. For example, if you don't know or you don't like the idea of refactoring code or writing tests, then you will feel like this framework, it's actually getting in your way. So right now we are seeing the agent working behind the scene and prepare the to-do list of the steps that it's going to do as it's implementing the step 0101. And we can see that, okay, so it's preparing, it's trying to run the acceptance test. We will try to run an acceptance test if possible for this step. There are some steps that don't require acceptance test. And then try to write the unit test, seeing them failing for the right reason, then making a pass, check if the acceptance test is now passing. And if it does, then create a review. All the review steps are actually part of the nWave framework, where we even have a review command that is different from the one that comes with Cloud Code. nW review, basically, it's triggering what Mike introduced before, which is the idea of an agent that is a reviewer. So why is that? The idea of a reviewer agent is the one that comes from what I call adversarial verification or adversarial review. That's the same idea of running tests against your code or running code reviews, but that works for all kinds of outcomes, not just for code. Why? Because AI can make mistakes. AI is stochastic. It's not deterministic in the way it works. And so to minimize the risk of making mistakes, making wrong assumptions, and so on, with the review step, we can ask the same expert, so another agent with the same level of expertise, to independently review the outcome and give us feedback on what's happening. And that is super powerful because it allows us to see first patterns in which the first outcome failed, and second, to correct the actual output. So let's talk about the actual workflow. We start with the command that is called discuss. This is a converging command. What does it mean that it's a converging command? It means that it's a command that allows us to define the user stories, for example, for a feature, the moment we know what we want to do. The discuss command can also be used for divergent thinking, but I have a strong feeling that I will need another wave before that, especially if you're a product person. At the beginning, before you even want to start building something, you are discovering, you are brainstorming. And so these agents are able to help you with that, question you. Many times they will ask questions to you to clarify things or to challenge your assumptions. And that is super powerful. Anyway, the discuss wave allows us to create all the documents for the requirements. So we can see in here, we have a bunch of acceptance criteria, the combat simulator demo requirements. In this case, we also have the user story and the hands-off design wave. This is the actual output. Okay, this is the actual output that we want from this wave as the input for the following one. And so the idea is that each wave carries something for the next one. And so each wave is composed of the input from the user, some outcome coming from previous interaction, the agent responsible for that wave, and of course, the pre-training for that agent. What does it mean? Well, it means that if you run these agents on ChatGPT, it's less likely that it's going to give you similar results. Not because ChatGPT is better or worse, it's just that the pre-training for that model is different. Even in here, we are using different models. For example, coming back to the idea of the review, since reviewing something, since testing something, it's easier than producing something from scratch. A way to optimize the token usage is to tell Claude Code to run the command of the review using the model Haiku, for example. That is the cheapest one. Why? I don't need the genius to check some boxes. Okay, I need the genius to create the product. And so in this way, we can minimize or optimize the speed of the process together with the idea of how to improve the quality. And so, as I mentioned, up to this point, we already had this conversation. Otherwise, we would need a way longer demo for this piece. So in this first phase, we discuss with the agent that it's asking us more and more details about what we need to do, what we are trying to achieve, until we reach this document that is the hands-off design, hands-off wave. For whom? For the second wave. The second wave is the way that I call design. And this is crucial. Why? Because on one side, if you're doing classicist approach on test-driven development, your design phase happens during the refactoring. But if you're doing outside in or a more of a London school approach, we can have some design up front that allows us to define the boundaries of what we're doing and how things are done. And then within those boundaries, we are iterating with the usual test-driven development style. And that's why we have a double loop. Exactly like we are doing in here, but I will come back to that a little bit later. So what happens? Now we have the hands-off design document. And so for this reason, we can invoke the design command that requires the solution architect agent, which is it's the role I gave that to agent. One of the things about nWave is that it's very flexible, it's very extensible, and I even have some meta agents in there that help you creating new agents. Yeah. So the idea is that I want this framework to be opinionated in terms of building code, but flexible so that it can be adapted differently. And so in this wave, the solution architect will take this previous document and our input. Oh, for example, you can say, actually, we are going to build something for 10,000 requests per second in 4 nodes on the cloud, or no, this is a simple console application that I'm going to run locally. These are some things. Other things, very opinionated, but still tweakable to tell the architect, is that, for example, we need to have some kind of code organization and microarchitecture. What does it mean? Well, it means that usually this step will define that our design has to be maybe in an hexagonal architecture. So in here we can see maybe a better rendered way what the architect derived. And so we can see this rough graph, if you want, where we have the CLI layer, the application layer, where we have some components, and then the domain layer, where we have the actual domain. All of this was generated automatically by the agent. Okay. Of course, we can. No, I'm not raising my hand.
I am raising the hand to provide a stuff that for sure somebody is thinking. Automatically doesn't mean that he did it automatically by luck. It's
Yes.
because we have engineered the architect and all the wave with the behavioral boundaries that I was showing you in the presentation, so that the result of the architect is something that we expect from a crafter. So it's not luck.
Exactly. So yes, the idea is that those agents, they are very structured, and you will see that when we are going to make it open source. But my agents are not MD files. At least they are not born as MD files. They will be transformed as MD files to make them compatible with Claude Code. But the idea is that the agents, the steps, the commands are going to be extremely structured and based on a template, something that I iterated on and I will keep iterating on, measuring the improvements over time so that it provides better outcomes. But the idea is that in this way, I can get more repeatable results when I'm doing these kind of activities. And so in here we can see, okay, so the dependency flow. So for example, for dependency and dependency injection in here, component boundaries. So in here we see, okay, the character is a value object, the attack result is a value object, these are domain services. So we can see already in here, it's using domain-driven design to classify our design. We don't have to agree, okay? The moment we see this document and we disagree on something, we can invoke the design again with our remarks and let the agent improve the document until we're happy. Again, if we look at the code structure in here, we can already see that it's trying to create that hexagonal architecture structure where we have the domain, the application. It will probably, in the future steps, create the whole structure. In here, it created the test folder with the test doubles in there. We are going to see what this fixed dice roller is about and why it's already in there.
How we show the structure itself, Ale?
The structure of them?
The structure itself. So this structure is not something that comes by luck again.
Yeah.
The nWave to create this structure that is a Python structure is using what we call cookie cutter. That is a template that is created dynamically that fulfills all the best practices we want in order to warrant that the quality of the final product that we deliver is compliant to our standards. So the structure is something that is in a template, catalog, improved over time, is based on a way to structure the test and the code as we like. As you see the test, they have the doubles, the end-to-end integration, release test, unit test, but also you see that there are a lot of stuff here in the root. So the Python projects, they are created with a virtual environment. In the pip file, we have all the dependency. In the dependency, we have the dependency injection in dev that are the dependencies to create the PyTest libraries that they provide us the watcher and the test monitor with the coverage, with the mutation test, with the security scan, because you see here, the first stuff that we want to prevent is the agents to do a git commit push of garbage. So what we have done an adversarial review to what they do with the pre-commit. So here, if you open the pre-commit config YAML, there is a local quality gain that is attached to the git commit. Every time the agent is trying to do a git commit, now we do our adversarial review to see, hey buddy, are you compliant with the formatting, with the linting, with the strict data type, so that we don't use Python in version 2.0, where everything was cast runtime? Are you doing the security scan to see that you don't inject security garbage and vulnerability? So all this stuff, they don't come for luck. They are engineered to get pieces out of what we want, so with predictable outcome. I see a rise hand. Yes?
Yes, there's a rise hand here.
Okay, so I had a question regarding Claude. So I was curious whether nWave supplants a bit the planning modes of Claude, or is it actually also something that the nWave framework uses behind?
Yeah, so the planning part, it's something that sometimes I use, especially when we are creating and discussing. I use the planning, but the planning in conjunction with my commands and with the agent. And that's one of the things that make all the difference. So you have to think that the agent, it's a prompt, if you want, of thousands of lines, so a lot of token, that describe the expertise. Why is that important? Because with that prompt in the context of the agent, we will maximize the probabilities that we care about when it's going to predict the next token. Basically, we are telling the pre-trained model, dude, forget about the rest, only focus on, let's say, lean UX. Okay, and so that will become more of an expert in lean UX as we are discussing. And together with the command is the prompt, if you want, that we use to set the context and the sequence of operation that have to be done so that we maximize the value of that interaction. But why the sub-agents? Does anyone have an idea of why I'm using the sub-agents and not just the Lyra, the main agent that I have in here?
I'm guessing, so I'm just butting in. I'm guessing that there's many reasons, isolated environments and all that. But just to confirm, the phases that were shown previously were generated by the nWave framework.
Yes. Yeah. All of this, all of the documents you're seeing and the code is generated by the nWave framework. In fact, I would actually ask you to go to the repository for this demo and
Let's show the repository, Ale.
Yeah.
So we show them also the CI/CD
Yeah.
and all the other stuff.
Yes. So the
And
idea
in the meantime that you switch, I tell them also another interesting stuff. The thinking model that we are using was also optimized over time to use an MCP server for sequential thinking.
Yes.
Because in this way, we have a more predictable flow of thinking. So we have done, really, guys, years of experimentation to arrive to the point that we can do a live demo with you. Pretty sure that what will be produced is something that is very close to what we will show in a while. That is the branch that we have done it, is complete, and we show you a runtime working, because we don't know if at the end of this time we will have the agent still working or the final result. Here, as you see, the cookie cutter has not only created the local part, but has created also the repository with the remote. And in the remote, we have injected all the CI/CD. If you click on one of that, for instance, the CI/CD is building against 3 versions of Python, 11, 12, 13. If you open it, Ale, thank you. There is the workflow. And as you see, it's a composition of steps that warrants us that the coverage, the test, everything is as we want, as we would do as crafter by yourself.
Okay, so this is also to showcase the fact that everything that you're seeing was created in a few hours. Okay, so the continuous integration pipeline, the project structure, the documents and the implementation of the kata that I'm going to show you eventually. We don't have time to show all the code in this demo, so as it's almost like those cooking shows. We are making one cake together, the other one it's ready in the oven, and I'm going to show you how good it is. Okay, otherwise there's not enough time. In any case, to answer the previous question, yes, everything you're seeing now, it's created with a nWave framework. But one of the most important reasons to have agents is that with the agents and step this small, we can constrain the scope. What does it mean? It means that we are reducing the chances for the model to drift. The context is limited. It only has all the knowledge of the software crafter and the command of executing this step. Now, I'm also experimenting with even more constraints. And one of the things I'm working on, so if you will see in the repository, if I look in here, the pre-commit configuration, and I slide this down, you can see these are weird, not usual hooks. These hooks are in here basically to validate that our agent is going through all the steps. So now it's trying to create a commit for the first step. This commit has been rejected. This is the output. And so we can see that the pre-commit, it's a first gateway to basically constrain strongly our agents to do things. Okay, so I'm still improving the framework on this side. On the other hand, you don't have to go through all the waves yourself. For example, suppose you are a product owner. Okay, you can only be interested in the first wave, in the discuss wave. Okay, or you're a solution architect and you want to have a conversation with a architect expert that will challenge you and give you advice, but also provide you with some actionable documents. Then we have the distill phase. In the distill phase, what happens is that basically we are talking to an agent that I called acceptance test designer. But the idea is that is going to be what we call the three amigos. Okay, so that acceptance test designer is the guy that is taking all the requirements, the user stories, the design from the architect, and basically create a hands-off document for the developer, so for the software crafter, or if you want, for you as a team to implement manually. Okay, in here we have the description of what is going to happen with the scenarios and some of the features of these scenarios. But one of the other things they create, for example, in this specific instance, it also created the end-to-end feature file that we can see in here, where we can see the whole description of the user stories. And if you look at them, even though this is a very shallow domain, they try to be as non-technical as possible. They try to use, and this is throughout the whole framework, try to use and enforce the domain language, the business language, and try to challenge you on delivering business value. Okay, so these are the scenarios, high-level scenarios that were generated automatically by the framework. And as always, automatically doesn't mean magically. These are the agents that have been, if you want, trained, but I don't think it's the right word. I would say assembled.
Disciplined.
Yes, assembled with the knowledge, using, as I mentioned before, a couple of meta agents. One of the agents is the researcher. The researcher is an agent that is able to take information from reliable sources, also adversarially, so trying to cover also who disagrees, so that we're trying to limit the bias when we are trying to get the information. One of the principles I applied to my Lyra is that has to be always data based in her judgment. Okay, so she can't just guess, oh, 30% of people says this. No, she needs to back everything with resources and with data. And in fact, that is the first step of the develop wave, which is the one that we are seeing now, only in a smaller version. Why? Because the develop wave, it's orchestrating what I call the inner loop of this cycle. So if you're familiar with acceptance test-driven development, you know that there's an outer loop where we have acceptance tests that fail and an inner loop of unit tests that we create to make that acceptance test pass, so that that portion of a feature is correct. So what I did was thinking of the develop as the orchestrator for implementing a whole feature, which basically means creating the baseline for the feature, which basically is the idea of snapshot of where we are right now, so that at the end of the implementation, we can have something to compare against and see if we actually improved and delivered something. After that, there's another command that is orchestrated by the develop, but you can do that manually, that is called roadmap. The roadmap, it's basically a big technical document that explains what we are trying to achieve. And as I mentioned before, we already did those steps in here. So the baseline looks like this. So it's basically trying to understand what is the current situation of the project, because not everything is a green field. Not every feature is a new feature. Maybe we are on a task to improve performance or to fix a bug. And so we want to, for example, collect some evidence of where we are, so that at the end of the implementation, we can collect that evidence again and see if there is an improvement. After that, we can use the roadmap. The roadmap command will have a look into the baseline and all the other documents as well. But the roadmap, as you can see, it's a way, 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 way more complicated document. At the beginning, I was trying to have the agent to implement this whole thing in one go. It didn't go well, as you can imagine. Okay, if for a simple feature like the one we are implementing, this is all the specifications, the details for the specifications, it's very likely that the agent context is going to be saturated, and then we are not going to be able to finish without any hallucinations. So in the meantime, we can see that the
Ale,
AI...
they remind us that we have only 10 minutes.
Sure.
I would,
So, yes, maybe
I
we
would
want
speed
to...
up. Yeah, something that I would love to show them is an important aspect that teaching a lot of developers that are moving toward the craftsmanship. As you see, there are a lot of back and forth between the product side and the technical side, so that the examples that we have to implement everything, they are really many, not a few. We have tons of examples. Edge cases, happy path, unhappy path, error throws. All the steps that Alessandro was showing you are based on the double loop with the three phases before, enriching the double loop with examples that are working. That is typically the part in normal organization, the product part, that is never able to provide a developer with a user story refined to a point that you can simply copy-paste the user acceptance test in your assertion.
Okay, so in here we can see the tests that have, the unit tests that have been written for the step number 1. And in here we can see the implementation to make those tests pass. If we look at the updated, so of course we can always do better, but, and this is simple logic for now, I'm going to show you on the other branch the more evolved version of this code base.
Shall we show them the demo, the final one?
Excuse me?
Shall we show them the final demo?
I just wanted to show in here that we are tracking all the steps in the acceptance test phase. So red acceptance executed, red unit executed, green unit executed, check that acceptance, done, green acceptance, done, review, done, and it tells you what are the outcomes. The refactoring L1, L2, L3, L4, what do they mean? If you know about the refactoring priority premise, these are automatic refactoring that improve readability, reduce complexity, fix coupling, and introduce new types to make wrong state non-representable. In fact, we have a character type in here. We don't have a bunch of, arrays with some values in there, okay?
Strings.
No primitive obsession. And that's from the get-going or through the refinement phases going through the steps in here. So let me move to the demo branch. Hey, Lyra, let's check out the demo branch. I want to show people the full implementation. Okay, so now we are in the demo branch. In here, since it was a different version, instead of feature, we have workflow, but the idea is the same. We have all the steps. Look at this. These are actually even more granular steps. Each of them, it's a phase. So red phase, green phase. I wanted to compress them and make the steps a little bit bigger so that one step roughly, but we are still not there yet, matches one scenario, okay? In any case, the idea in here is that we implemented the whole solution. Let's have a look at the structure. So in here we have the infrastructure, domain, and application. all of this, the organization was defined by the architect on its own, agreed with us. In here, we can see the code. So for example, we have the character in here. It's very simple. The combat result, it's a data class. We know that from before. The attack resolver, it's a service that decides about the attacking and damaging. Combat round is the one that defines who is the attacker, who is the defender, what goes on. The initiative resolver is the one that defines who is going to attack first. Okay, and all of this was inferred and generated by the agents. Okay, I agreed with this design, but I could disagree eventually, and with the refactor command, or if it's a bigger refactoring, with the Mikado command, it will try to create a plan to change the design, keeping the test passing and improving it gradually as we go. In any case, hey Lyra, please run the CLI with Python so that we can show people the output from this implementation.
As you see here also, the bottleneck is not anymore typing because we are talking with AI. That is another important step to move to a more natural collaboration.
So in here it's failing because this implementation requires some argument. So now it's invoking it with some arguments. This is the input, so in. Since there's timing, this is the output of the combat simulation rendered with emojis and all that. And of course, if you don't believe me, I can run this on the terminal with the run shell command. And now it's asking me who's the first character, let's say Paladin.
Not the usual mic. Typical, you let me smash everybody.
Okay, how much energy for Mike? Hit points?
Due to my vegan diet, I guess at least 900.
Yes. And how much attack power?
With 7 trainings a week, I guess 90.
99, cool.
99, you have overpowered me, okay.
Yes. So it's supercharged. So we have the character created. Now it's asking for the other one, which is a goblin. Okay. In here, I'm going to randomly assign the values. So the goblin has 27 hit points and 6 of attack for an agility of 33. And as you can expect it, the goblin was one-shotted by Mike with that is now the winner. So honestly, this is a very simple kata. Okay, the idea of this kata was to show you the code generated on something that it's unlikely that the model has seen before. It's very likely that it's seen something similar, but if I showed you something about, I don't know, Gilded Rose kata, I don't know how many
Or tic-tac-toe.
or tic-tac-toe, I don't know how many versions of that are on the training set. And so the idea was to show something very quickly that is structured in this way. Again, in here, we have all the steps for the implementation. And one of the cool things is that we also had a bug fixing step. What does it mean? It means that sometimes you don't want to go through the whole 5 waves. You can start directly with baseline, roadmap, execute, review, refactor. These are your closest friends, okay? And when you start working with them, if you don't want to have the long discussion about, the product, maybe it's a pet project or you're just a small implementation, this is what's going to happen. But as Mike was saying before, what if the AI cheated on us? What if it's not being serious with us? So we need another adversarial check. As we mentioned before, the adversarial check we put in place is the mutation testing. Hey, Lara, please run the mutation testing against these solutions so that we can see if you lied when you created the test. Hopefully she won't get pissed off.
She should be used. As you see, what I was telling you during the presentation is really what we do, is our final adversarial review of the code. We are the final boss of the code. We are in charge. We don't let code going in production to create harm to you as a freelancer or to your employer or to your company because an agent did something on the code. We need to supervise it and being competent, because also remember, the European AI Act is active from last year. From this year is even more restrictive, the kind of stuff that you need to prove and be compliant. And the main thing that everybody using AI in your organization, and it's enough that you have a Google Workspace, if you have Gemini, okay? So for the European law, having AI, even if you are not aware, means that you need to be compliant now. And being compliant means that you need to be competent to use these tools so that you have the authority and the competence to say to AI, hey buddy, stop, this is crap. I don't want to ship it in production. And the organizations now, they need to show that they are compliant. And the system is designed in a way that a company to be in a tender or to go to the European Commission to get the European funds, they need to be certified. So as you can imagine, this starts to become slowly an hard enforcement for the organization to improve people to work in a certain way. That is something unprecedented. I guess everybody of us remember what was with the Dieselgate, when the developer was incriminated for the pollution scam. This is completely the flip of the game. Will be the employer incriminated to don't have provided enough training to the people to be competent enough to challenge AI. We have to see how it will unfold on the court, but this is more likely something that can happen. That is why we want to release with nWave also the AI readiness assessment, so that you, your team, your manager, leadership, they are aware of what is going on. And this is the adversarial review, you see?
Yeah. So as you can see, there are a few surviving, probably because there are parts of the code that have been included in here. For example, the CLI that, or the run that are not part of the actual
the wrappers.
application. But from here, we can see and we can feed this output back into the software crafter and say, okay, so there are some things that are missing. Please fill those gaps. Someone is asking a question, so there's a raised hand.
The raised hand is to say that we had the end of the event, so if you can close the discussion, you're talking soon.
Yeah, so I think we showcased everything that we wanted to.
Yeah.
I am sorry for running late for 1 minute. And yes, if you want to say something, or if you want to get in touch and be alerted if we are doing something new, when the framework is going to be open source, so that you can start using it and contributing to it, please giving feedback. If you don't want to contribute, at least tell me what are your usages, what are your challenges, what are your opinions on the user experience dealing with this. Everything helps to democratize high quality software for everyone.
And please, in Mentimeter, I put the last question so that we start to gauge how this presentation was, because then we can improve it to make something that we can mainstream in the future. So every feedback is really appreciated.
Here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Alexandra, for inviting us in here. Thank you, everyone, for showing up and finding the time to attend this event. I hope to hear from you. And yes, that's all for me.
You can find us on LinkedIn.
Anyone has some question here?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, did you ever thought to use your framework to create your framework?
Yeah, that's the idea of the meta agent. Okay, the meta agents are the first agents that are used to create new agents. But of course, the more I'm doing this, the more I am acceptance test driving the creation and update of what I'm doing. Okay, so yes, if the idea in here is that why AI is an amplifier, because if you know automation and you know already a good workflow on how to produce high quality, reliable software, AI is just going to make it easier. Okay, it's going to actually make harder things that we wouldn't do before possible. In fact, I know someone that is building on his own in 40 days a whole platform from scratch using my framework that is going to compete with the bigs. And he's already showing this to other people out there. They are joining. And if you think one person in 40 days can now challenge the bigs that have teams of more than 1 or 2 people, okay, working for
Founding of more than 1 or 2 millions, let's say.
that is what is possible, of course, if you know how to be structured in your work.
I have another question. So, with respect to token usage, have you tried to benchmark your framework with respect to other multi-agent frameworks that exist?
Yeah. Well, I don't have benchmarks, but I can tell you this is token hungry. Okay, so I'm using a max subscription for Claude Code. Anything else is not agentic coding. In fact, we dare to say that we call this wave coding because of the because of the waves and everything. Of course, the new version I'm working on is going to be based on the Tune format, which is token-oriented object notation for internal usage so that we minimize the tokens. But when you have to deal with reasoning, when you have to deal with specifications, when you have to deal with code, you need an enterprise subscription. So I would recommend you to use, if possible, a Claude Code subscription with a max or max 20. I don't take money from Anthropic, at least not yet, but that's my recommendation.
Probably never.
Yeah, probably never, but yeah,
But
you never know.
let me add something here. There is a reason why we are using Claude. That is that Claude so far is the unique one that is oriented to craftsmanship and is the unique AI that is providing you all these tricks that I have shown you to create and craft a personality so that is predictable, the agent. Because with the others we have tried, but we weren't able to achieve even 50% of it.
Maybe to reassure you, I know people from Google who swear by Claude Code, so there are people who weren't convinced, at least at the moment. I know that this is the best solution. But when you say that the framework is hungry, I'm guessing you're comparing it to the single agent or not to a multi-frame.
Yeah. One of the cool things, I mean, I try to not be token bound because otherwise I really have to do so many compromises that then make the AI less valuable. One of the things I didn't show you is that since these steps are small, if they are independent, you can run many agents in parallel. Okay. And so if you don't have that much of a limitation in the tokens, then you can parallelize a lot. You can actually ask the agents to define the work so that is as parallelizable as possible. But again, it's a matter of how many tokens you want to spend, how much time you have, and how much money, obviously.
But let's provide also a tangible example. coding in pair, me and Ale, with 2 subscription, not max 20, max normal, we were able to switch between one session to the other within the 5 hours without interruptions.
Yeah, yeah.
If you are alone, after a few hours, you will start to get short on credits. But the point, as you see, is that the handover between an agent and the next step is documented in the handover itself, so that you commit and then you move on the other agent with the other subscription, and they take over the work. The unit stuff that really change between these steps is that the orchestrator from Ale is Lyra, the orchestrator on my side is Vera. That has a different personality and a different kind of approach on data-driven.
Yeah. So one of the advantages of having the hands-off documents is that we want to also overcome the limitation of the context. And so if you think of the context as the RAM of your machine, the files, the hands-off documents are the hard drives. And so if you finish with your tokens or you need to do something else, with this framework, you can stop where you are, since we try to follow as much as we can and log as much as we can, and then you can move on from where you left it. Okay, so that's the other aspect that I think it's really important. You don't have to do a one shot of everything and wait 8 hours just to come back and see that nothing works. On the other hand, sometimes, especially recently, the model is more powerful, and I refined the prompts and everything. Sometimes I leave it overnight, and leaving it overnight, maybe for not something critical, but maybe, just something you're experimenting on. Of course, using the dangerously skip permission flag. Otherwise, you will wake up at 8 in the morning with a prompt for the user. So that's a way. On the other hand, maybe don't leave it on your main machine, on a virtual machine or something, so that if it makes any crazy stuff, at least it's not going to format your your main machine. Okay, people. I think we are already 10 minutes late. Are there any new questions?
There is something here on the Miro.
Okay.
Which LLM model are we using? Apologize if stated already.
Yeah, no. So I usually use Opus, but also Sonnet works very well. And I have to be honest, sometimes I use Haiku if the steps are well defined and the code that has to be generated is not that complicated. Haiku is not bad, actually. So we are consider, oh, Haiku is the cheapest one. Dude, Haiku was Opus 6 months ago. Okay, so they're just shifting the new models and renaming them. But what you paid a lot 6 months ago, now it's cheap, but it's still valuable. Other questions?
So please provide link example, QR code. Okay, I put the main one here. That is the repository where we have all the code. And then I will add all the QR code for the other stuff.
Just want to mention something that I just read very quickly. I started this framework for a Brown project that I had. Okay, and then I work my step backwards for a Greenfield project. But this works best if you already have something in there. I repeat, if you do baseline, roadmap, execute, refactor, and review, with these 5 commands already and the software crafter and the DevOps, you can do wonders. Okay, putting things under test, refactoring up to a very good point, write a whole plan. My suggestion is try to reduce the scope and be systematic in your refactoring. Thank you.
So the next one, does Will and Wave support work trees, parallel step, multiple agents working on a part of their own space and merge back without conflict resolution?
No, I haven't put the work trees, but the agents can work in parallel on the same task, on the same feature, or also different features if you want to have more than one at the same time.
Okay, let me put here also the QR code. I'm multitasking, that is not my best skill. Where is all that configuring cloud code? I haven't used agent yet, so I have no idea. Okay, this is the concept of the meta agent, the creator, the architect that we were discussing, and everything is put under .cloud and is formatted as cloud wants. Do you want to add anything here on the architect?
Well, you will see that when we are open sourcing this, but basically my idea was to find out the state of the art on the definition of the structure of an agent, create a template out of it, and then ask an agent to refer to the template and the knowledge that we accumulate, for example, for crafting code, and create a new agent that is the merge of the template with the knowledge. But as always, this is a work in progress because this is, Kaizen, keep on refining and improving as we go.
Then next, the last question. Can different agent tools than Claude be used? Example, open code.
Okay, so actually, the idea for me is this. When in nWave, I have a compiling step. So what I do is I create a definition of the agent that is assembled referencing pieces of knowledge, and then it's put together to create the output specification of the agent. But the output specification of the agent, it's text. And so if you copy the whole text, which is a few lines, into, let's say, ChatGPT, then ChatGPT would have that knowledge. The biggest difference is in the pre-training. So if ChatGPT hasn't spent as much time as Claude Code on code, then the output can be different. But nothing prevents you from applying those prompts to another model.
Also because remember, the prompts are providing clear instruction on what to do, how to do, because it's the behavioral training to make the variability narrowed to a predictable path. The outcome are unpredictable because it's based on the model. We have tried a few experiments. We have run parallel experiments on a different AI engine that I don't want to name, because then seems that we are saying that the others, they are not working. But on Claude, with the kind of flow and configuration that we have found, the performance was the best. And with that, I don't see any more questions. I'm still pasting the QR code.
Nice.
So I will return the voice to Alexander.